Hi, Todd here from Urban Sound Studio, and today we're taking a look at how to get started with the Korg MS-20. Now, if you purchased an MS-20 and you're not sure how to get started, then this video is for you, because it is set up a little differently from other synthesizers. Now, we're using the Korg MS-20 FS, which is the new 2021 edition of the MS-20. But if you use the MS-20 Mini, or you're using an MS-20 that's vintage or older, or even a software version, this will all apply because we're going to start from scratch and see how to get up and going. We're going to focus only on the left side of the synthesizer, which is where we're going to manipulate all our sounds, and we'll leave the Patchbay or the patching for a totally different video. So let's get started with some great sounds.
So obviously on the top right, we've got our volume, which also acts as an on-off switch. On the bottom left, we have our portamento. With the portamento turned all the way off, there's no glide. But as we start to add it, we'll hear glide added between the notes. And you could even set the portamento really long. And next to that is the master tuning for the MS-20. And master tune puts the entire keyboard in and out of tune. So now let's take a look at the top left. We have our voltage controlled oscillators. So we have oscillator 1 and oscillator 2, and they are mixed using the VCO mixer. Currently, we've only been listening to VCO 1. And if I turn it down, our sound goes away. And within VCO 1, we have different shapes: triangle, saw, pulse, and the pulse width can be changed. And up last is our noise. For now, let's leave it on triangle. And at the bottom, we have the ability to select the octave of oscillator 1. And that's all controlled by the volume here. Now let's bring up the volume of VCO 2. It's very similar. We have our sawtooth, our square, our rectangle or pulse wave, and then the ring or ring modulator, which is a setting that combines the sounds of both of the VCOs in a way create the sum and differences of all the harmonics present. It creates a nice metallic sound. If we make adjustments in VCO 1, such as adjusting the scale, we'll hear it change the sound. So for now, let's keep it on square, and at the bottom, we have the octave. And now on this oscillator, we have a pitch knob. So the pitch is great if you want to do something like set both oscillators to 16 foot, put them both on saw, we'll put them both at the exact same level, and the pitch can determine how in or out of tune they are. Or you can use it to set different intervals. Let's set the first oscillator to a saw, the second to a square, and we'll put them an octave apart from each other. And now let's explore our filters. So on these two filters, when the peak is off, that means there will be no resonance. On the high pass, the filter's totally open if it's at 0. And on the low pass, it's totally open if it's at 10. Now the high pass will cut out the low frequencies. And the more peak you add, the more resonance you get. Which adds a singing type of quality to the filter. Even though this is a high-pass filter and it cuts out the lows, and you start to bring that filter up to about the setting of 2, it actually gets a nice little lift and a bass boost, because there's a little boost due to the resonance. Let's take a listen to our low-pass filter. You can hear there's a little bit of noise in there, and that's the noise coming from the filter, and that's part of the MS-20 sound. And when you really start to drive that peak or resonance, that's what people love about the MS-20. And of course, you could use any combination of both the high and low pass filter. But now let's take a look at our envelope generator 2. And you can see here on the label that our voltage controlled amplifier is controlled by envelope generator 2, which is marked EG2. It could also be controlled by external, which is this section on the right, but we're not going to talk about that in this video. Let's start with attack time, which is the start of the note. It can start immediately, or turn it up to gradually swell into each note. Now the sustain controls when you hold a note down, what is the level of that note. And with the sustain down, we could then set our decay, so after the initial attack, there's a little bit of decay into that sustain note. And this can create a nice click type of sound. For now, let's bring our sustain up, the decay all the way down, the attack time all the way down, and let's look at the release. And the release is how long does the note last after you let go. Now, up on top we have something called the hold time, and the hold time simulates how long you're actually holding the key down. Now, it may seem to be the same thing as the release, but the difference is the hold time is simulating as if you were holding the actual key down. I'm going to turn the hold time all the way up. Put oscillator 1 on noise. Now I could adjust the filters as if I was still holding down the note, essentially allowing me to have 2 hands free to manipulate each filter. In that entire time, the hold time made it think we were holding the note down the entire time. Now let's explore what's going on in the bottom section. So the signal flow goes oscillator, mixer, filter, and the amplifier is being controlled by the envelope generator 2. Envelope generator 1 actually controls other things at the bottom where it says EG1. But first, let's take a look at our modulation generator. So the blinking light is the speed or the frequency. And the first knob determines how much of an interval it affects the frequency. or we could just go totally nuts with it. Now the cutoff frequency modulation here in the center affects the high-pass filter. And then we also have the ability to do the same thing for our low-pass filter. And changing the shape is really nice with some of that filter frequency modulation. Now let's explore the 3 knobs at the very bottom. Now the first one determines how much envelope generator 1 affects our frequency modulation. So if I bring this up, I could say I want the attack time of this envelope generator to affect the pitch. Now for the release time to work with the pitch, you're going to need to have a little bit of release time with the amplifier set too. And we could do a combination of both the attack and the release time affecting the frequency modulation. The delay time is the time it takes for these 2 bottom knobs to engage. So the more I bring that knob up, the longer I need to hold down a note for that envelope to engage. Now on the filters, envelope generator 2 actually affects the filters, not envelope generator 1 with these bottom knobs. Though you could use the right-hand Patchbay to alter that, but let's save that for another video. So let's close our filters a bit, we'll add some resonance, add a little bit of attack time, and let's experiment with how the envelope generator can start to affect our filters. So we make our settings in envelope generator 2, but then we use this knob at the bottom to control how much it influences the filter. So let's do the same thing with the low pass filter. So that's it. In a short period of time, we covered the left-hand side of the synthesizer. Portamento and master tuning affect the entire synthesizer. Oscillators 1 and 2 set their level with the VCO mixer, and then use the filters to filter out different parts of those oscillators. Our amplifier is controlled by envelope generator 2, and our frequency modulator can be controlled by our modulation generator or envelope generator 1. Our cutoff frequency modulation could be changed by the modulation generator or envelope generator 2. Hope that helps. There's a lot to do with this synthesizer, and next up, we're going to be covering the Patchbay on the right-hand side.